try and get a sense of what he's speaking about.
Political parties involved is an achievement, a successful achievement on its own. And Al Jamaa, as a party, firstly, is and will always be grateful for the opportunity and the trust that political parties had. And you can tell from engagements with other political parties that they were content with how the tenure was managed.
Okay. There are complaints from the opposition benches. We've also had this conversation in council with those who are accusing you of failing in your duties. And I hear you touching on the successes of your tenure in office. What do you make of those? Do you think those comments are fair at this point?
So,
and have they contributed to the decision that you have made to tender your resignation from the position of Mayor of City of Johannesburg?
My resignation is informed by nothing outside of a conversation that was had with the ANC. The same way that the conversation was had in inception, to say we need you to become mayor, and then we will further engage on when a transition will take place. That discussion has happened, and I have
Well, unfortunately, that particular feed froze on us, so I couldn't get that answer, and pity, because I would have liked to hear what he has to say about the failures that are now being placed at his door as the mayor at the time. So it's going to be an interesting one, and I think, welcome your views on this. Please continue to engage on the social media platforms in terms of what now. And that whole 200 Rand issue in the city of Johannesburg, it requires, another engagement altogether with regard to electricity provision in the city and who is to pay and who's not to pay for the infrastructure that ensures that the electricity reaches all of us. And as I say, perhaps another day, because we're already out of time here. So thanks to the production team. Thanks, of course, to all of you for tuning in. It's 1 o'clock. Yes, Dineo Motaung with your latest news.
Thank you, Sakina. Top stories. Unemployment increases again in second quarter, and SABC MK Party GNU court battle put on temporary pause. A very good afternoon. Chief Economist at Econometrics, Azar Jamin, says the rise in the unemployment rate was expected given the constrained economic environment of little to no growth. Jamin's comments come after data released by Statistics South Africa revealed that the unemployment rate increased from 32.9% in the first quarter to 33.5% in the second quarter of 2024.
It's not surprising. It's a reflection of the continued lackluster nature of the South African economy and the fact that we are seeing far more people entering the job market than the economy is able to grow. And as a result, we're seeing a rise in the unemployment rate. We saw it particularly harshly in the informal employment. Unemployment rates ought to carry on rising until such time as the economy's growth rate picks up to the extent that the labour force is increasing.
The Umkhonto Wesizwe Party's legal challenge against the SABC on the use of the term Government of National Unity will only start on Thursday in the High Court in Johannesburg. The two parties were in court today, during which the legal challenge was put on a temporary pause. This to allow the applicants to reply to the SABC's answering affidavit, which was filed late last night. The former President Jacob Zuma and the MK Party launched the urgent court application to have the public broadcaster's use of the term GNU declared invalid and unconstitutional. Judge Sina Yakub handed down the order in response to Advocate Dalim Mpofu, who is Zuma and the MK Party's representative.
Then subject to your reply being filed by midday tomorrow and heads being filed by 6 p.m. tomorrow, the matter stands down to 11:30.
In other news, the ANC in Johannesburg region is set to hold a media briefing this afternoon about the reconfiguration of the government in the city of Johannesburg. The briefing comes hot on the heels of a decision by the region to adhere to the party's NEC framework on coalitions. It prescribes that the party with the majority of seats in council should be elected to the mayoral position, with the aim to oust the current Joburg mayor and replace him with an ANC candidate. Xoliswa Makiki filed this report.
The current Mayor Kabelo Kamanda was elected into office with the backing of the ANC and EFF. This after the government of local unity replaced DA-led multi-party coalition. This was the first time in history that a party with only 3 seats in council was elected to the position of mayor. The ANC now wants the current finance MMC Dada Morero to wear the mayoral chain. Xoliswa Makiki, SABC News.
Retired cell phone data analyst Colonel Lambertus Steyn says he was requested to look into the phone records of former Senzo Mayua's girlfriend and singer Kelly Khumalo, as she was then a person of interest and not a suspect at the time. Steyn is under cross-examination at the High Court in Pretoria, where 5 men are on trial for the murder of the Bafana Bafana captain. Mayua was shot and killed in 2014 while at Khumalo's parental residence in Vosloorus in Gauteng's East Rand. Steyn, who has been recalled to clarify evidence on the alleged communication between Khumalo and accused number 5, Visoguhle Ntuli, is being cross-examined by Defence Counsel Thulani Mgomezulu.
Kelly Khumalo was not a suspect, and we concentrate on her as a person of interest. The number of Nkani, suspect number 5, with the number +27 73202, was discovered and ownership was confirmed via e-notice and bank statements.
But you further mentioned that he was
a person of interest.
A person of interest.
That's correct.
What do you mean by that?
Person of interest, I mean by that she was one of the persons in the house. It was one of our witnesses at that stage.
Lastly, a seaside area to the east of Athens is the latest to be evacuated as pockets of fire continue to burn. Nea Makri is just one of the suburbs of the Greek capital that the blaze has affected. The body of a woman was discovered yesterday in northern Athens. The BBC's Jessica Parker reports.
A body believed to be that of a woman was found inside a shop in the Vrelisia area. It marks the first known fatality of these wildfires that began in the East Attica region on Sunday. Last night, fire services said that while there was no longer one main active fire front, they were continuing to tackle hotspots and that conditions remained dangerous for the coming days. This morning, there's been another evacuation alert, this time for part of the seaside town of Nea Makri, just east of Athens, as fire pockets continue to flare up.
Recapping the top story this hour, chief economist at Econometrics Azad Jamin says the rise in the unemployment rate was expected given the constrained economic environment of little to no growth. Headlines at 1:30 for SFM News. I'm Dino Mataung.
18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on the 2024-2025 Bundesliga season. Catch the action live on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game. 20 outfits of the Premier League are back on the battlefield for another spectacular season, with ambitions to play the world's most competitive and compelling football.
Rodri! City 3! West Ham 1!
This is the massive fight for the ultimate glory.
Caicedo, is he going to try and beat it from inside his own half? Oh, Moises Caicedo! I can't believe it! What a way to score your first Chelsea goal!
Experience the 2024-2025 Premier League season on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. we will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday, happy birthday, happy birthday, happy
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
Always about you and what you gonna do for me today. Always about you and what you gonna give to me today. Cause you're not feeling good. All about you and what you gonna give to me today. Cause you had a bad day. Well, so did I. So did I, baby. Well, so did I. So did I, baby. Tonight we're gonna talk about feelings. Tonight we're gonna talk about all the things that I've always wanted tonight. You're gonna be making up for all the times when I needed you and you were not there. You were not there, yeah. Oh, can we talk about feelings? Can we talk about feelings? Can we talk about all the things that I've always wanted to say? Can we talk about feelings? Can we talk about feelings? All the things that I've always wanted to say. Truly understand. Tried everything, but all you do is make me feel so bad for wanting you, for loving you, baby, for needing you. Whoa, baby, tonight we're gonna talk about feelings, baby, tonight. We're gonna talk about all the pain that I feel in my heart. Though I'm loving you still, I'm needing you still, though I'm wanting you still. Oh, baby, feel all the things that I've always wanted to say. Can we talk about it? Give me some time, baby. All the things that I've always wanted to say. Yeah.
It is Zonke Tikana. That is how we kick off the show today. Simply going by Zonke. She just had a show in Sun City this past weekend on the 10th, of course, in celebration of Women's Day. They get quite busy. They get really busy. That top tier of performers in the country, the likes of Zonke, Simpiwe Dana, Thandiswa Mazai, Judith Supuma, that OG elite school. I think August is really the month when they shine brighter than most months. And she also has done a collab. She's reworked and sampled a classic song by Mdu Masilela, No One Like You. And this came out a couple of months ago, around about May. She was posting that it would be available for streaming or downloading at wherever you get your music, whichever platform it is. Admittedly, I haven't heard this reworked sample as yet, but maybe I'm going to put it on my to-listen list as I head out this afternoon. I tend to listen to music only when I'm in the car. We've got lots of show planned for you today. By the way, I hope you're having a great day. Where are my manners? I hope you are having a great day thus far. We've got quite a jam-packed show for you today. We are going to be having a conversation with BOSA's deputy leader, Nobuntu Hlazo Webster, alongside Luke Lambrandt, with the child protection who's a child protection and development specialist with Women and Men Against Child Abuse. And we're talking around the call for the South African Sex Offenders Register to be made public, and we're going to find out, what are the pros and cons in as far as that is concerned, as well as what does that register look like right now in its current state. Also coming up, it is Women's Month, so we're still focusing on dynamic women in their respective places, and today's no different. We're going to be introduced to a young woman who's carving out an interesting career for herself and others in the world of arts. She's a creative and cultural practitioner. She's going to be joining us in this first hour. On the other side of two, because we had Miss South Africa yesterday, the newly crowned Miss South Africa, Mia LaRue. If you missed out on that conversation, by the way, you can double back on our podcast on safm.co.za. Because we had her yesterday, we thought we'd have a conversation today that touches, of course, on those who live with hearing impairments. Nearly 136 million people in Africa live with some kind of hearing difficulty. And today we invited Professor David Swanepoel to come through for that conversation on the other side of 2 o'clock. So looking forward to a little bit of learning for you and I, and as far as that is concerned, 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on, and 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. If you'd like to send us a WhatsApp voice note, you are more than welcome to do so. So two things that we would like you to be active on right now on our WhatsApp. One, what is your take on the sex offenders register? Do you think it should be made public and easily accessible for anybody who needs to access that kind of information to know whether or not there is a sexual predator or sexual offender living in close proximity to you? Or do you think that it should be restricted maybe to certain organizations, industries, places like teachers' bodies and teachers' unions and people who deal and work with children and vulnerable people? We'd love to hear your thoughts on that. You can call us live on 086 000 2032. You can send us a voice note on 061 410 4107. The other thing has got absolutely nothing to do with our first conversation, but we are celebrating 88 years of SAFM, the oldest radio station in South Africa, and we're giving you an opportunity to win 8,800 Rand every single day on some or one or a few shows, and all you have to do is listen to the station 24/7. And today we've got 8,800 Rand in our kitty, in my little piggy bank, that I'm going to be giving away, and I'll let you know how you can win that in just a few moments. Let's take a quick break.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So for our first conversation, as we look at the South African Sex Offenders Register, there's a call by BOSA alongside other organizations like the Women and Men Against Child Abuse organization, calling for the National Register of Sex Offenders to be made public and readily accessible to anybody in the country. And we are joined now by telephone by BOSA's Deputy Leader, Unobuntu Hlazo Webster, and of course Luke Lamprant, who is a Child Protection and Development Specialist with Women and Men Against Child Abuse. Good afternoon to you both, and maybe let me start with you, Unobuntu, since it is Ladies' Month. A happy Ladies' Month to you. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. Happy Women's Month, Bridget, and thank you so much for having me.
It's only a pleasure. Let's get into this call. So you're calling for the National Registry of Sexual Offenders to be made public and readily accessible to anyone in the country. Firstly, maybe let's understand by way of the National Register of Sex Offenders, because some people do not even realize that such a thing exists. Let's elaborate on what exactly it is and what kind of offenders or crimes perhaps feature in it in its current form.
Sure. So currently, as it stands now, the register is really for primarily protecting children and persons who are mentally disabled. And so there's a record of persons who've been convicted of a sexual offense against a child or a person who's mentally disabled, and of people who have been alleged to have committed a sexual offense against a child or a person who's mentally disabled. And those people stay there until the court has made a finding and given direction as to whether that offender is mentally unfit to stand trial. And if they are found to be convicted, then they remain on the register. But if not, they then are removed from the register. The people who currently have access to that register by way of application as well, they have to apply for the information, are institutions that work with children and that work with mentally disabled people. So that's how it currently stands now. And I mean, a couple of years ago, there had been, great concern over actually the backlog that existed. And I know that that was to some extent improved, but there is a backlog that exists even with the current National Sexual Offenders Register. So that's what it is. That's who has access. But even with that access, it does have some limitations.
Yeah. And in terms of the backlog, is it the backlog in accessing it within sort of reasonable timeframes, or is the backlog of updating it so it reflects current convictions and offenders?
Well, it's actually both, because the backlog I was referring to was of updating it, but it also is not something that is a quick turnaround in terms of application. If you apply for the access to the information, institutions are not always able to get that information as quickly as they would like. Many institutions that we've spoken to have told us they waited something like 6 weeks for information. So it's both, really.
Yeah. Luke, let's jump you in here. Luke Lamprant, who is, of course, a Child Protection and Development Specialist. And you obviously, this is your space of expertise. Let's talk more about why is the National Registry inaccessible or has limited accessibility. What is the reasoning there? Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. Look, there's a big complexity around the whole register scenario in South Africa, because there's actually two registers.
Okay.
So you've got the National Sex Offender Register, which correctly said is a register of people convicted of sex offences against children, persons with disabilities, and vulnerable persons. And because it's a conviction, that 6-week turnaround, believe it or not, in our country is actually incredibly quick. There's a second register, which is the Child Protection Register, and that's the register of people who are unsuitable to work with children. And that one is housed within the Department of Social Development, where both employers and employees should be making application before they get employment with children to see that they are not on that register. Now, if you have been convicted of a sexual offence, you're automatically on the Child Protection Register, but you can end up on the Child Protection Register for other reasons: unethical behaviour as an educator, employment findings in terms of a labour hearing. So that register can take months to get clearance against. So, we are having huge problems accessing the register as people who employ children. So the fact that the register is accessible for people who employ people to work with children, in my opinion, means that if I want to employ, for example, someone to coach my child tennis, I should be able to access that register because I'm actually employing the person who is working with my child, and there's a register of people who should not be employed to work with children. So why can't the public access it? Because parents should be able to check that the people who they employ and pay to work with their children are in fact people who haven't been declared unsuitable to work with children, which is broader than the sex offender register.
So is the call then, Luke, to make both the National Registry of Sexual Offenders and the Child Protection Registry accessible to the general public? Is that the call? And what has been the reasoning behind, for instance, not allowing full access to everybody on both or either or of the registries?
So, the register of people unsuitable to work with children, which is the Child Protection Register, includes everybody who is on the sex offender register. So, in other words, you automatically, if you're on the sex offender register, you automatically end up on the Child Protection Register. Equally, if you do a simple police clearance check and you have been found guilty of a sexual offence against anybody, or in fact, if you've been found guilty of any offence, you will not be able to get a police clearance because it will show that you have some kind of conviction. So for me, the call would be specifically for people who work with children. We have legislation that says that there are certain people who have been found guilty of certain offences, not only sexual offences and not only criminal offences, for those people to be known so that we don't employ them to work with our children. And the problem is there has been there's been a couple of arguments as to why not. The first has been, if you are found guilty of this offence, it's a life sentence. But there are applications you can make to get off the register if you are a convicted offender. So there is a redress process for people who believe that, they've now been given a life sentence. But the thing to think about is I would really not want anybody who has been convicted of any kind of impropriety, whether it be physical, neglectful, sexual, to be able to work with my child. And if I'm employing them, I should have access to that register. So the one big argument people had was that it may inspire vigilante justice. Now, I haven't seen that because we name people in the media all the time. In fact, we're involved in an extremely big international case at the moment where the elderly man who's facing extradition to the UK on dozens of charges of sexual abuse over decades, plus he's facing charges here. He's been named and his photo has been in the newspaper. Nobody has gone to seek him out for vigilante justice. So the idea that publishing people's names places them at risk, for me is wholly outweighed by the fact that it potentially places our children at risk because we have a thing called career offenders, who are people who choose jobs that give them access to children.
086-000-2032 is the number that you can call us on, and 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line. What is your thoughts on this? Do you think that the National Registry of Sexual Offenders as well as the Child Protection Registry should be made accessible to you as the public, mom and dad, so that you can also do your own due diligence when bringing people into your children or your vulnerable family members' space. I'd love to know your thoughts on that. Nobuntu, let's jump back to you. You know, as Luke brings up the issues around that, the counter argument has been the possibility of vigilante justice and, of course, placing people at risk. It also speaks to the fact that, by and large, we have a constitution which speaks of the right to privacy, which is extended even to those convicted of the most heinous crimes. What is then the argument that you are putting forward as Bossa to say, listen, we hear that, but this is the stronger case for making this accessible to the public?
I mean, as a start, court proceedings are public records.
Yeah.
And when someone has been convicted, it's not easy, but if you want information about somebody who's been convicted, you can find it because court proceedings are public records. So this is something, so the argument against a human rights violation then becomes flawed because you can have access, you can find out if someone has been convicted of an offense before. So that already exists as a precedent to say that is in the public record. This is saying there should be a specialized record of that. And the reasons are many. I mean, right now we have Luyanda Botha. And I want to speak about Luyanda because what I often say is so many of us in South Africa were touched and moved by the story of Uyinene. We can talk about Uyinene. If I ask you who she is, you will tell me who she is. If you ask many South Africans, what does she look like? If you say point to a picture, they'll recognize her in a picture. But most people don't know Luyanda Botha's name. Most people don't know his face. He now is somebody who is again now being he's in court as we speak now because of a case which had been struck off the roll before the Uyinene case. This is somebody who by the time he got to Uyinene was a repeat offender. Now if that case had not been struck off the roll, if that case, and if he had been convicted and there was an easily accessible sexual offenders roll, he wouldn't have been at the post office. I mean, we can then speak and argue about police clearance and why somebody who's at the police is at the post office doesn't have police clearance, but there are also criteria in various institutions that then say you have to submit a police clearance in order to be employed.
Yeah.
Whereas when there's a sexual offenders register, you are able to then access that information. And we're just talking about employment. There are people who would have had intimate relationships with Luyanda Botha. I love what Paul raises because you could hire him in your home. You could have him in your home where there are children, where there are women there, and you will have no idea that this is the kind of person that they are. So the big argument is, first of all, to say there's precedent because of public record, but the second to say that we have too many cases in South Africa where you have repeat offenders, and this is it's a preventative action because we talk a lot about what must be done.
Let me do this, Nobuntu. Let's just pause it there for a second, just a brief second to take the headline news, and then we'll come back on the other side and continue our conversation.
With headlines at 1:30, I am Dino Mutaung. Good afternoon. Executive Mayor of Johannesburg, Kabelo Gwamanda, says his resignation had nothing to do with the complaints from the opposition parties regarding his failure to lead. In other news, Chief Economist at Econometrics, Azar Jamin, says the rise in unemployment was expected given the constrained economic environment of little to no growth. And the FBI is reportedly investigating efforts to hack both major party presidential campaigns in the United States. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
The Full Circle with Bridget Masinga, Monday to Friday, 1 to 3 p.m.
So our lines are open on 086 000 2032 and 061 410 4107. That's our WhatsApp line. If you'd like to send through a WhatsApp voice note, you're more than welcome to do so. And of course, because it is a polarizing topic of conversation oftentimes because offenders do come from families and they do come from communities. And so if you want to share your thoughts and your perspective anonymously, you're more than welcome to do so. Before I get back to my guest, perhaps, really the call is by BOSA and other organizations such as Luke's Lambrand's Women and Men Against Child Abuse organization are calling for the free access to the National Registry of Sexual Offenders, and they've put out a petition for everyone to sign and get on board and get behind this. Kanyisa out in Northwest, how are you? Oh, all right. Okay, you're still chatting there offline with my people. Nobuntu, let's go back to you. So, some people might ask, have we seen in the countries where where there are national registries of sexual offence, have we seen any tangible data that says perhaps these registries, on the one part, go a long way towards sort of curbing these kinds of crimes against children and the most vulnerable? Do they provide some kind of deterrent for offenders to do this, because now they are known to community and known to people? Is there case studies along those lines?
Yeah, they absolutely are. In the States, there are numerous states where it has made a significant difference. There's various applications of the Act in these various countries. For instance, in America, some states have a tiered system that assesses your risk to the public, and therefore, there's levels to the registrations, and that then determines, is there a public announcement when you come back into society, or are you just on a register that people can access and your name is there? So there's tiers. And the other thing is that people often argue that, this would then become a life sentence for somebody who probably has already served their sentence, etc. Well, I want to go again back to Luyanda. Luyanda Botha has got 25 years. He could be released in 12 years. That's now. And he could come back and be a repeat offender. And so that's a reality. But what has happened in some of the states is that you are able to then, after 10 years post-release, you are then able to apply to be removed based on your behavior. You then can apply to be removed from the register. Yeah. So there are various applications that can be applied.
And what kind of information are you calling for on this registry? Are you just calling for a naming of? Because we also know, as you use the US as an example, for instance, in some states where you have to then also update your personal information by where you live, where you work, and that becomes accessible to communities. And there have been cases where people, offenders have been harassed and stalked and had some kind of retaliation against them in communities because people knew that X person lives on this street in this house and works at that particular. Are we calling for it to be that transparent?
We're calling for it to list the person, what is the crime that they were convicted for, which area do they live in, so that you have to go back to what is the ultimate objective. The ultimate objective is prevention and protection of women and children, and so that is enough information to be able to protect somebody who wants to know if there's a history or a conviction in terms of sexual offences. It is really we have to keep coming back to what is the objective. The objective is the protection of women, children, and vulnerable persons. That is what it is.
Let's see if is it Kanyisa or Kanvisa? Because sometimes yes, Kanvisa. How are you?
I'm good, Bridget.
Yes, go ahead. So you would be signing the petition?
Bridget, I'm going to sign that petition so that people of South Africa, I think they must join us and sign that petition so that that register must be given to community so that we must know who are these people who are raping, who are abusing our children. but not men only. That register must include those women who are abusing men, who are raping men. Because always we talk about only men. We must also talk about women who are raping men.
Can Visa, I think, thank you so much for that point. And you have a good point in both sides. But I think both my guests are calling, they've used the word, those who've been convicted. So, they didn't gender it at all. They said all those who've been convicted. But you do have a point, and that's a conversation for a completely another day to expand on that one. Luke, let's jump to you. I know that the UK, for instance, has what they call Sarah's Law. It's not necessarily a rectified law per se, but it does allow one to approach the police in the UK and then ask for specifics around people who work with children. This is, from my understanding, this is what you are calling for, the ability to go and get this information.
Absolutely. If you think of employing anybody, so I employ someone to come to my house to teach my child piano, I should have a right to know that they have been convicted of a particular offence. Because, I can choose to not employ them then. There are many times where people are excluded from employment based on previous convictions. You can't work for a bank if you've been convicted of fraud.
Yeah.
So, it's a consequence of your behavior. So certainly we want, parents, because at the moment parents aren't seen as employers, they're seen as parents. But parents often pay people who they put in positions of great trust, where they should, in our opinion, have access to the register to be able to say, has this person been convicted of such and such a crime? Because otherwise I really actually don't want them working for me. And I certainly don't want them around our children. However, there's another problem. And we had a case in South Africa based on that legislation where a man had been convicted of an offence in the UK. He had served time in the UK. And he had been put on that register in the UK of, people who cannot work with children. We had a group of, because he was an Olympic coach, we had a group of parents in South Africa bring him over, knowing what he had done and knowing he was on the register in the UK, and employ him here to work with our children. And they did that knowingly. Wow. So there's a level at which communities also need to take responsibility, and say we will all stand together to protect our young people, because there are certain adults who believe it's more important that you have an Olympic coach than that your children are safe.
That's very disturbing. 0614104107 is our WhatsApp line. Let's go to WhatsApp and hear what's on your mind.
Good afternoon, Mzansi. This is Bagi in Cape Town. I hear what Nobuntu is saying and the other fellow about making this registry available publicly. However, there are very sensitive issues here. Maybe sensitive issues the wrong way that I'm using. Constitutional issues that we need also to look at. Privacy, dignity and so forth. Yes, I know these people have violated other people's dignities and all other freedoms and the like. However, shouldn't we be taking it further to say, let's have the application before court, and I want to be honest that I want to think that this is actually going to be before the Constitutional Court, because the court will have to proclaim on how is this going to violate on others. This is Baki in Cape Town.
Hey Bridget, I also think that if an offender is released from prison, or a person is convicted and paid a fine and go back to society, the neighborhood must know that that house there is a sex offender, because children go missing in South Africa, children are raped, and people are not even aware that their neighbors are sex offenders. So in the States, you are actually, when the child is missing, the community or the neighborhood is able to say, we have a child missing and house number so and so has got a sex offender, and the police are able to have a place where they start to investigate. Thanks, it's Bongi here.
Thank you, Bongi and Baki. And let's throw it to you, Nobuntu, because he directed it to you. Or perhaps wait, let me take a quick break and then we'll come back on the other side and I'll get your responses on the voice notes.
In August, we celebrate our amazing women farmers who nourish and clothe our nation.
Farmers and researchers and academia can work closely.
Catch Living Land on Sundays at 11 a.m. on SABC2.
Victory in the opening match always sets a good tone, and that's what the Gunners of London are gunning for.
They've almost scored! Kai Havertz! And Arsenal have won it late up.
Meanwhile, the Wolves are on a real mission to howl for 90 minutes in search of essential 3 points.
Wolves have a second! And listen to the noise!
This is the Premier League. Witness the thrilling encounter between Arsenal FC and Wolverhampton Wanderers on Saturday, 17 August at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
37-year-old Tabucho got a really great deal on his car insurance premium from Outsurance. He pays an amazing 762 Rand per month to insure his white 2018 Ford Figo Ambiente. Now he has extra cash every month to go out for a meal with his friends. Get an Outsurance quote today by simply SMSing out to 30754. That's out to 30754 now. Outsurance is a licensed FSP and T's and C's do apply.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
As we continue the conversation with my guest today, asking whether or not you are behind this call to make accessible to the general public the National Registry of Sexual Offenders as well as the Child Protection Registry, which currently sits with the Department of Social Development. 086 000 2032 is the number that you can call us on if you want to go live with your opinion or your perspective. 061 410 4107 is our WhatsApp line. If you'd like to send through a WhatsApp voice note, you are more than welcome to do so. And of course, you can always send it anonymously as well if you so wish. Nobuntu, as we were going into the break, Baki sent a voice note, and I guess what he was impressing on was that we are a country that is led by our constitution, which observes the rights of every South African, including those that are convicted, and he pressed upon, well, what happens to violating the rights of the convicted? What happened, doubling back to that question of their right to privacy, and he says, and I'm not one who knows anything about the law whatsoever, but I think I gathered him asking, is this something that can be presented before the court for consideration and discourse, as just a general, we have this thinking, what is the thinking around it, justices?
So, I think for me, the argument on a precedence that exists for public records still holds. For instance, if you are applying for certain jobs, there will be a criminal, your criminal record will be checked. That is information that is publicly available. And so that is that exists now. If you look somebody up, if you go through public court records now, you can find that information, that very same information anyway. This is a way to make it more easily accessible, but it's not to say that it's not information that is publicly out there as it stands now. It's information that publicly stands, that is available now as it stands. And so the idea of a violation of the Constitution would be to say that having any public records of court proceedings or of convictions is then a violation of the Constitution. And actually, that would mean that even as we sit now, there's a violation taking place. So I think that argument, it can't hold, because this is information that is in the public domain.
All right. Let's go to WhatsApp. And we've got a message here that says, I came in a bit late in the conversation, but what I know is that in the US, a sex offender is obligated to go house to house and announce themselves to the neighborhood that they are child offenders. Maybe the same could be applied here. I've not been a citizen of the US, so I don't know in as far as their laws, how things stand, but I do have, as we've said with our guests, that we do know that there are some states where they do have a sexual registry that pertains information about Mr. X lives here in this neighborhood, on the street. But whether or not you go house to house announcing yourself, I'm not too sure. I think that maybe that's also stuff that we see in the movies. It doesn't necessarily depict reality. I don't know. I'd love to find out from anybody who's worked maybe in this particular field in the US. Let's also go to voice notes.
It's quite interesting that we have people who are defending these crime perpetrators under the disguise of human rights. Whilst this information is available to the so-called big organization who has got funds and can protect themselves, because if that person wants a job, these organizations or companies can do the checks, the criminal record checks, before employing this individual. But us as communities, we are not aware that we are living with the monster next door to us, and people talk about human rights.
Hi there, Bridget. I think this petition is a little bit dangerous in one way or another, because as it is, offenders, they're still suffering with getting jobs because of this criminal record status.
All right, let's quickly jump to our call. I'm chasing time now. Let's go to a Kleckstop. How are you?
Yes, I'm coping, my darling. And how are you?
I'm great, thank you. I've got literally 30 seconds if you can get it in there.
Okay. Now, even though I'm not good in English, but I'm touched by you.
Kuluma, you can talk whichever language you want.
Okay. Hey, can you take maybe like 2000? I got arrested in 1999. And 2000, hoping that I didn't rape that woman. But unfortunately, because of I was alone, then Bapak against me. So we were 15 years. So when I was in prison, I was bitter, and I said to myself, when I go out, I'll make it a point for but luckily, so ka repent like what the fa modimo pelo ya ka a ke tse mo mphinyeo. Then I forgave that person. Then ke sebile 8 years out of 15 years. So no mo toping ya fanda ke putsa potso gore what about people ba le ba tshwana le nna, because I'm not the only one go dira galang ka yone register because of hona le batho ba tlileng o tsa advantage ya gore mang o tlile ya go tronkong, and it go from the bottom of your heart.
Okay, thank you so much, Kleckstop. We will call you anonymous. Thank you for sharing your story. I mean, we fast run out of time. Perhaps, Luke, let me let you have the last bite of that. He went to prison accused of rape, from what I understand. My Sotho is not too good. Accused of rape, 15 years in prison. Came back from there, but he alleges that it was a false accusation to begin with, and came back, has repented, found God, and the rest. So he says, the question is, what about those who have been falsely accused and unjustly then sentenced?
Look, I mean, the chance of guilty people being found guilty in our courts at the moment is somewhere around 7%. So the proportion of people who are innocent in jail, I would think, would be a tiny percentage, an absolute travesty of justice. But I think that would be a massive exception to the rule.
All right. Luke Lambrand, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. And Nobuntu Hlazo Webster with Bossa, much appreciated. We're running about a minute or two behind for the 2 o'clock news, but let's get into Kids Corner.
Paying your TV license means that you can tune in to the Expresso Morning Show from 6 to 9 a.m. Mondays to Fridays right here on S3. Enjoy our entertainment, recipes, and important current affairs and updates. All of this for less than 74 cents a day or 265 Rand for an entire year. For superfast, secure, and convenient payment from any device, go onto tvlrc.co.za and click on the Fast Pay button for payment in under 3 minutes. Make a difference with Expresso and TV licenses and paying yours.
18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter. This is the Bundesliga, football as it's meant to be. Do not miss out on the 2024-2025 Bundesliga season. Catch the action live on Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. Live on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
This program is brought to you by SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Hello everyone, I'm Mushfika Talib. My favorite school subject is English. What I enjoy most about this subject is writing creative essays and stories of my choice. A project that I found the most interesting in this subject is when we did research on the cartoon love story Cinderella. We had to go in depth about the creation and development and plot of this cartoon. We even watched a few versions of this movie in class. My least favorite subject is technology because I feel like it's way too much admin and honestly a waste of my time. I feel like most of the time a certain subject is usually a student's favorite, mainly because of the teacher. If your teacher is fun and engaging, then I feel like the subject is bound to be more enjoyable and liked by more students. My favorite subject can help me in everyday life by teaching me proper words and how to form sentences when typing or writing, and to also boost my imagination and creativity. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.
My name is Labanzi Hlongwane. My favorite subjects are history, English, creative arts, LO, and mathematics. I really enjoy these subjects because of the teachers. The teachers are very funny, they're very interactive, and they always make sure that everyone understands before they move on. Apart from that, they are very nice people in general. They're not boring, they're not intimidating, and apart from the subject that they teach, they are very welcoming people. If ever you have a problem, it is very easy to talk to them, and they give very good advice. So sometimes it's not about the subject, it's about the person who teaches it. And I think it's definitely, that's why I like most of my subjects. I definitely like maths because of the problem solving, and mostly because of the teacher, because they just make sure that their lessons are fun and that people are actually focused and people are actually learning. I feel like these days a lot of teachers aren't really passionate about teaching. So I'm really, really grateful to have these teachers that actually love their job and actually, even ask us how they can improve, how they can be better teachers instead of, no offense, but the older teachers who are more experienced, who don't allow children to express themselves, who just want their way and their way only.
Hello, my name is Pazuma Chete and I am 12 years old. The school subject that I love the most is natural sciences and technology. The reason why I love natural sciences and technology the most is because it has so many fun activities to try. I also love it because it teaches us about the things that happen in our nature and also how our electricity works and how it's conducted.
My favorite subject in school is history because of how easy it is to learn. History can also be very interesting and fun. My favorite part about history is where we learned about the traditional healers and all their herbs and mapungubwe.
Hello everybody! My name is Karabo Malebo. My favorite subject in school is PSW and art. What I learned in PSW is for you to be healthy and be kind. In art, we get to do art like painting, doing sculptures, and autographs of our own.
My name is Risitsa Masinga. I'm 10 years old. The subject that I like the most is creative arts. Because in creative arts, we do all sorts of things. Like we draw, we color, and we paint, and we build things. And we also get to do cultural things. And that's why I like creative arts, because in creative arts, we do a lot of creative things.
Hi guys, my name is Kate. My favorite subject is art. I love art because you get to express yourself and be creative. I also like a subject called life orientation. And life orientation is where you learn our school values and learn how to be kind and learn things like diet and how to be a better person.
Hello friends and happy Tuesday. I totally get that school can feel like a roller coaster sometimes because some subjects are fun while others can be a bit tricky. Today we are diving into why every subject is important and deserves your attention. With the right mindset, even the subjects you like the list can turn into something enjoyable and easier to grasp. First off, let's explore why every subject is worth your focus. Each one offers valuable lessons that contribute to your growth. Math sharpens your problem-solving skills and logical thinking, while science helps you make sense of the world around you. Reading and writing enhances your ability to communicate. History gives you insights into the past and its impact on the future. And let's not forget art, which allows your creativity to flourish. By putting in your best effort across all subjects, you're laying a solid groundwork for your future. Now understand that there might be one subject that feels a bit dull or challenging. But here's a little secret. You can make it more enjoyable. Start by discovering something within that subject that piques your interest. Even if it's just a small detail. If math isn't your favorite, think of it as a fun puzzle where you are the detective solving mysteries. And if reading isn't your thing, try exploring topics you're passionate about, like animals or sports. By linking the subject to something you love, it can become much more engaging. Another fantastic way to tackle a tough subject is to seek help. Don't hesitate to reach out to your teacher, parents, or friends. Sometimes hearing someone explain things in a different way can make everything click. You can also check out entertaining resources like educational videos, games, or apps that turn learning into an exciting journey. Joining a study group can also make the process more fun because you're working together as a team. Lastly, keep a positive attitude. It's perfectly normal to find a subject challenging. That's part of the learning process. Instead of saying I can't do this, try saying I'm going to keep trying. Next time you're in class, focus on each subject with your full attention. With a cheerful mindset, a dash of creativity, and support from your peers, you can turn any topic into an enjoyable and more manageable experience. You've got this. Keep on learning and growing.
This program was brought to you by SABC Education. Enriching minds, enriching lives.
Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS card to 43187 now.
Top stories. Gwamanda speaks on resignation and unemployment increases again in second quarter. With the news, I'm Dinomo Taung. Good afternoon. Outgoing executive mayor for the city of Johannesburg, Kabelo Gwamanda, says his resignation has nothing to do with pressure from opposition parties, but it follows his discussion with the ANC. Action SA has been calling on Gwamanda to resign, saying he has failed the city. Over a week ago, NGOs also staged a protest outside the Johannesburg City Council, calling for the mayor to step down. Gwamanda has accused Action SA leader Herman Mashaba of being one of those who collapsed service delivery in the city and left it in financial shambles while he was mayor under the DA. The ANC's Dada Morero is tipped to be the next mayor of the city. Gwamanda elaborates.
My resignation is informed by nothing outside of a conversation that was had with the ANC. The same way that the conversation was had in inception, to say we need you to become mayor, and then we will further engage on when the transition will take place. That discussion has happened.
Energy expert and former executive manager of Eskom, Valley Padiachi, says the system is failing the 8 million people who currently do not have access to free basic electricity. This after Electricity and Energy Minister Dr. Kgosientsho Ramokgopa revealed that 10 million households qualify for free basic electricity, but only 2 million have access to it. Padiachi reiterates that qualifying methodology is taking longer than expected.
There's a free basic framework that COCTA has come up with. National Treasury allocates the monies through the equitable share grant to each of the metros in Munich, and they base that on stats from Stats SA for the free basic electricity portion to each Munich. So each Munich and metro gets the monies to allocate for free basic electricity, and at this moment it's 50 kilowatt hours. So the people that should be getting it are seemingly not getting it because of bottlenecks in the system, in the municipality. Right. Yes.
In other news, chief economist at Econometrics Azar Jamin says the rise in the unemployment rate was expected given the constrained economic environment of little to no growth. Jamin's comments come after data released by Statistics South Africa revealed that the unemployment rate increased from 32.9% in the first quarter to 33.5% in the second quarter of 2024.
It's not surprising. It's a reflection of the continued lackluster nature of the South African economy and the fact that we are seeing far more people entering the job market than the economy is able to grow. And as a result, we're seeing a rise in the unemployment rate. We saw it particularly harshly in the informal employment. Unemployment rates ought to carry on rising until such time as the economy's growth rate picks up to the extent that the labour force is increasing.
A joint operation by PATCO's inspectorate team and local police in Mamelodi, east of Pretoria, has resulted in the arrest of 28 individuals suspected of ticket fraud. The operation, targeting a bus company primarily transporting workers, aims to address ongoing issues with counterfeit tickets. PATCO says one suspect was apprehended with multiple counterfeit tickets, allegedly in the process of selling them to other passengers. The bus company says they've made progress in addressing ticket fraud following the conviction of over 25 passengers in February for possessing counterfeit tickets. PATCO spokesperson Lindogu Sekulu says the convicted individuals received suspended sentences of 3 months, direct imprisonment or fines of up to 5,000 rand each.
We acknowledge that many of those apprehended are the end users of counterfeit tickets produced by individuals who remain at large. PATCO and the police are actively pursuing these manufacturers through ongoing investigations and planned special operations.
Lastly, the FBI is reportedly investigating efforts to hack both major party presidential campaigns in the United States. This comes after former President Donald Trump's campaign blamed Iran for the hacking of its international communications. Sharon Bryce Peace reports.
The FBI is also reportedly investigating an alleged hack targeting advisors to the campaigns of President Joe Biden and current Vice President Kamala Harris. Trump's campaign pointed to a Microsoft report indicating that Iranian government-linked hackers tried breaking into the account of a high-ranking official on a U.S. presidential campaign in June. The Iranian government has denied that it hacked the Trump campaign. There are long-established concerns about efforts to influence U.S. elections through nefarious cyber activity, most notably the 2016 election. Chauvin Ricepeace, SABC News, New York.
Recapping the top story this hour, outgoing executive mayor for the city of Johannesburg, Kabelo Kwamanda, says his resignation has nothing to do with pressure from opposition parties, but it follows his discussion with the ANC. Headlines at 2:30 for SAFM News. I'm Dino Motaung.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accidents and 1 million rand liability cover, all covered by OUTsurance Essential. Get a quote today by SMSing car to 43187. So you think your older car doesn't need insurance, but what if your car accidentally caused damage to someone else's expensive car? OUTsurance Essential is affordable insurance for older cars, giving you up to 1 million rand liability cover and loads more. Plus, claims are paid in cash, so you can use your own panel beater. OUTsurance Essential is priced for cars older than 5 years and valued at under 125,000 and not financed. Simply SMS car to 43187 or call 0800 60,000 today. OUTsurance is a licensed insured financial provider and T's and C's do apply.
Your geyser would have hot water, but some people overloaded the transformer with their illegal connections. You're late again and the robots don't work. Some people vandalized it for copper. The whole community doesn't have electricity because some people have been bridging meters for a small fee. And now the transformer has exploded due to overloading. Don't allow illegal connections by criminals to inconvenience you and your community. Report criminals to ESCOM on 0800 11 2722 or the SAPS. Save your transformer. Save lives.
TV licenses have developed a new GIS-linked national address database to ensure that we can communicate with all our valued license holders. We now have a visual of all licensed and unlicensed households nationwide in order to effectively communicate with you. We remind you to take note of our payment reminders and avoid paying penalties due to non-compliance or choosing to ignore your legal obligation to pay your license fees. We can communicate with all our license holders through cost-effective electronic methods, enabling us to collect license fees and continue to support the national broadcaster, the SABC, in accordance with Section 27 of the Broadcasting Act No. 4 of 1999 as amended. TV licenses. Pay yours. Make a difference.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. Bridget Masinga, weekdays on The Full Circle.
Ondikhalisa ubusuku bonke liyoza
zoluthando luphele nini izihlukumezisa ndizihlukumezisa ngawe indlela endihambileyo ndiyabona utikiwe ndim indlela endigqithileyo ndifuna ubona ubuso bakho ndihlala ndikucinga phezolo bebendibuza ukuthi wayaphi nyanomntu utshone phinde icela uphume baby abanye bayahleka ndihlala ndithandaza ukuthi kuphele konke ubuhlungu endinabo indlela endihambileyo ndiyabona utikiwe indlela endigqithileyo ndifuna ubona ubuso bakho indlela endihambileyo ndiyabona utikiwe ndimo indlela endigqithileyo ndifuna ubona ubuso bakho zimela ukuzidinga kuboni isezoma ngaphandle phendula ukuthi ndenze njani incede makhelwane indlela endihambileyo ndiyabona utikiwe ndimo indlela endigqithileyo endihambileyo ndinomonganga.
It is the full circle with myself, Bridget Masinga. That is how we jump into the second hour of the show. I did say that the conversation continues today. By the way, just by way of reminder, Amifaku there, for those who are wondering, Amifaku with Indelendlela is the name of the song. But we are giving away 8,800 Rand in celebration of our 88th birthday on this show in this hour, and all you have to do really is SMS SAFM 88, well rather WhatsApp us SAFM 88 followed by your name. Let me just double check if we are actually using. No, we're using SMS on this one. My apologies. So SMS us SAFM 88 followed by your name to 41391, and that's all you have to do if you want to win 8,800. Let me say that number again. 8,800 before I commit the station to obscene amounts of money. So if you want to win 8,800 in this hour today for our 88th birthday, all you have to do is SMS. That's SMS it to us. SAFM 88 followed by your name to 41391. That SMS line is 41391. And of course, remembering that SMSs are charged at the usual standard SMS rate. So there's no trick question to it. There's no catchphrase to it. You don't have to answer your phone in a specific way. You just have to answer your phone. So once you've SMS me SAFM 88 followed by your name to 41391, and you take your phone everywhere in this next hour, and you could win 8,800 Rand. That's 8,800 Rand. We've got 10 lucky listeners that are going to be walking away with their share of the pot for our 88th birthday. And today we get to share that joy with you. That SMS line again, 41391 is the SMS line, SAFM 88 followed by your name. My producers are standing by to give you a ring, and then all you have to do is answer your phone when we call you. So every strange number from now until 3 o'clock, you just answer the phone. Let's take a quick break, and then when we come back, we get into health and wellness conversations, and we're talking around hearing loss and all matters pertaining to good hearing, healthy hearing, as well as things that we should be on the lookout for.
We can do this. It's been a long time coming. This deserves to grow. It's a great business. If they don't like it, someone else will. And fund me so I can expand. Maybe I can offer them shares. I need to retain equity for staff. It's going to be good for recruitment. Yeah.
Possible begins with that one great idea. When Telkom enables entrepreneurs to make their ingenuity a reality, we grow local economies. Telkom. Possible begins here.
20 outfits of the Premier League are back on the battlefield for another spectacular season, with ambitions to play the world's most competitive and compelling football.
Rodri! City 3! West Ham 1!
This is the massive fight for the ultimate glory.
Caicedo, is he going to try and beat it from inside his own arm? Oh, Moises Caicedo! I can't believe it! What a way to score your first Chelsea goal!
Experience the 2024-2025 Premier League season on Saturdays at 3 p.m. live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. Hashtag we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Bridget Masinga, weekdays on the Full Circle.
Okay, remember that you have to SMS me. I see a few of you WhatsApping me, and my team can't respond to all of you. You have to SMS me on 41391, SAFM 88, followed by your name if you want to stand the opportunity of winning 8,800 Rand. Right now, though, we are in conversation with Professor David Swanepoel, who is with the Audiology Department of the Speech and Language Pathology and Audiology at the University of Pretoria, and we're talking around hearing loss, impairment or deafness, which affects surprisingly many people around the world, around 430 million in as far as I understand, or roughly around 5% of the worldwide population, and this is according to the World Health Organization, some data that they released earlier in the year. As we get to understand better around matters of hearing, and nearly 136 million people in Africa alone live with some kind of hearing difficulty. Good afternoon to you, Prof. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thanks, Bridget. Good to be with you.
Thank you so much for taking the time. By the way, the professor is coming live on our live stream, so if you'd like to get the visual image, you are more than welcome to do so. We thought we'd have this conversation today because yesterday we had newly crowned Miss South Africa, Mia LaRue, joining us in studio, and we spoke around many things, and part of, obviously, was her profound hearing loss. And I think it came as a bit of a surprise to some people, if the response on my social media is anything to go by, that some folks are born with some kind of hearing loss or hearing difficulty. In her case, 100% hearing loss, which was diagnosed around the age of 1.
Yes, Bridget, so hearing loss comes in all shapes and sizes and at different stages in life. So Mia LaRue has a congenital hearing loss, so that means from birth, and she had a really severe degree of hearing loss. But you can get hearing losses ranging from mild right through to severe. In fact, the hearing loss she has, the profound type, is actually more rare than the more common milder and moderate types of hearing loss.
Oh, is it? Interesting. And tell me this, is there a way of sort of diagnosing hearing loss at the sort of baby womb stage of life? I don't know, maybe deploying some kind of radiology waves or things of that sort, or is it something that can only be diagnosed after one is born?
That's a great question, Bridget, and something we like to raise awareness around. We can actually determine a baby's hearing status right from birth. So typically there's a newborn hearing screening that's done for hearing for babies that are born. In other parts of the world, like North America, Europe, typically every baby before they leave the hospital have their hearing screened before they go. In South Africa, unfortunately, due to infrastructure constraints and resource constraints, that figure is less than 10% of babies in South Africa who actually have their hearing screened before they leave the hospital. And the types of technologies that are used are really remarkable. So we can literally put a little probe into a baby's ear. We present some sounds, and if that hearing organ is functioning normally, we pick up some signals that come back through the ear canal, and we can actually say that this child's hearing is normal or abnormal.
Very interesting. I know that the WHO's numbers for SA, compiled in collaboration with yourself, reflect that we have a significantly higher incidences of some form of hearing loss. How high are we from the global average, and maybe what are the factors, if any, that affect these numbers?
Yes, so I think you mentioned it earlier that there's about, the estimates globally is about 1 in every 5 people who have some degree of hearing loss. In South Africa, that figure is slightly higher. The main causes of hearing loss, first of all, is aging. So the second most common cause of hearing loss is due to noise exposure. So that may be due to your occupation, where you're working, machinery that's making a lot of noise, may even be due to, one person's noise is another person's music. So if you listen to music for too long, too loudly, it can cause hearing loss over time. It usually doesn't happen straight away. But then also things like infectious diseases. And in South Africa, we've got all kinds of risk factors that are more prominent here than they are in other areas, can also lead to hearing loss. So there's also ear infections that, if they don't get treated properly, can lead to permanent hearing losses. And then, of course, there's also, I think you mentioned the example of Mia Leroux, there's also genetic causes of hearing loss, where young babies are born with hearing loss, or they develop it in the first few months of life.
Yeah, just while we on that, genetically, is if one, genetics implies that, right? There's some kind of lineage that we can trace this to. So does it happen that in families you'll have multiple folks with some kind of hearing loss if it's a genetic thing?
Yes, so typically if it's a childhood type of hearing loss, then genetics become an obvious potential contributor or risk factor to a hearing loss. So if there are other family members who had hearing loss from a young age, then certainly, that becomes a risk for genetically caused hearing loss. But sometimes genetic hearing losses can be quite random. It's 2 recessive genes that come together, and in that young child, they are then presenting with a hearing loss. So it's not always that there's multiple children or family members who have the loss.
Okay, I got you. And then let's talk about, you mentioned these causes by way of aging, for instance. Is this something that is predominant, and what percentage does your hearing sort of deteriorate at the specific phases of your life the older you get?
Yes, so Bridget, I think it comes as a bit of a shock to us when we realize, we start losing our hearing after 25. So you have the best hearing at the age of 25, and then you start losing your hearing ability, especially in the very, very high frequencies. So usually you don't even notice it. Okay. But over time, and of course, different people lose it quicker than others, but you just need to grow old enough and you'll have a hearing loss. So studies show us that people above 90 years of age, 90% of them have a hearing loss. And the typical time when you may start noticing the changes more would be after 50 and after 60 years of age. It kind of more rapidly increases after 65 years of age.
Very interesting. And then there's nothing that one can do to sort of stall that or improve it or even maybe reverse it slightly?
Yeah, so there is good news, Bridget. So we can actually do some things to ensure our hearing health for as long as possible. So I mentioned noise exposure and sound exposure as a risk factor. So that's actually one of the factors that can accelerate age-induced hearing loss. So the more noise and sound you're exposed to that is excessively high for long periods of time, that predisposes you to age-related hearing loss at earlier ages. So we're always advising, and this is also from the World Health Organization, especially youngsters these days, there's awareness campaigns that want people to make sure that they turn the volume down, they don't listen for extended periods of time. The message is not to not enjoy music and sound, it's just to do it responsibly.
Yeah, Prof, we are live streaming you, so I know that you've got a clear visual to me in studio, and you saw my sort of clutch my pearls reaction when you spoke about that. In the back of my mind, I was thinking about my younger sister who's with our sister station Metro downstairs, and she's a club DJ, and through all the years of my radio career, whenever I plug in my headphones, coming into work, coming out of music radio, the volumes at which some of my colleagues would keep the headphones, I often wondered. I was like, no, you're going to blow your eardrums up before you get to 50. Now you've just confirmed it for me.
Yeah, exactly. It's an occupational hazard. And the difficulty with that, Bridget, is that you don't feel the effect straight away. Unfortunately, it only starts showing 5, 10, 15 years down the line. So people don't change their behavior because there's no immediate experience of loss straight afterwards. They may experience some signs of it, and maybe this is something recognize if you have a ringing in your ears after you've been in a noisy situation, in a nightclub or you've been somewhere where there's been a lot of noise. Sometimes you experience that ringing in your ears. That's a good sign that you've probably been exposed to too much noise, and that you need to be careful.
Sure. So interesting, this information. And then by way of ear infections, what are we talking about here? Because, I don't want us to be alarmist, or I don't want myself to be alarmist. And I think about all the ear infections that we all grow up having. But we're not talking about that, like just the common ear infection that you have at age 8, 7, 6, because you don't know how to clean your ears.
No, and that's a good point, Bridget. So ear infection is extremely common in young children. So pretty much every child is going to have at least one episode of ear infection before the age of 6 years, and they usually resolve by themselves, or you need a little bit of medication, and that's perfectly fine. Sometimes when it's persistent, the eardrum might burst, and there's a bit of discharge that comes out of the ear. But fortunately, the eardrum heals by itself usually. Some children are exposed or are predisposed to actually have multiple ear infections, and they don't resolve. And in those instances, sometimes there could be residual hearing loss because of that. But those are in rare circumstances. And in adults, ear infections are quite rare. But if they do occur and we don't have the right treatments, and typically in Africa that is a risk, they can go over into permanent hearing losses. But like I mentioned, the most common causes are aging and noise exposure. So the infections are less of an issue.
Okay. I want to pause here for a second, Prof. We'll come back on the other side and steal a few more minutes of your time. But let's get into the headline news with Dineo.
Thank you very much, Bridget. Good afternoon. Let's take a look at the headlines at 2:30. The legal team of Morwadi Chuluta says it is dismayed with the decision of the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court to decline oral submissions in her bail application. In other news, outgoing executive mayor for the city of Johannesburg, Abelo Gwamanda, says his resignation has nothing to do with pressure from opposition parties, but it follows his discussion with the ANC. And the executive director of the Centre for Education Communication Rights and Transformation at the University of Johannesburg, Professor June Baum says they are working with various stakeholders to provide teachers with inclusive training to accommodate left-handed learners. A full update follows at the top of the hour.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
We are in conversation with Professor David Swanepoel, who's with the Department of Speech, Language Pathology and Audiology at the University of Pretoria, and we're talking around, ear health, hearing loss, impairments of hearing, deafness, and such. Interesting that I just read, Prof, and I know earlier we touched on the fact that in collaboration with yourself, the World Health Organization said that South Africa has significantly higher incidences of hearing loss, with 12.1 million South Africans, so more than the fifth of our population. And then I further read that only 2% of those who need hearing aids in Africa actually wear them. Now, I wonder, what does the social and economic landscape and environment in South Africa and on the continent, how does that affect matters around hearing?
Yeah, so Bridget, unfortunately, that is the reality in Africa, is that access to, the life-changing interventions and technologies of hearing aids and cochlear implants are just not available to the general population. South Africa is more fortunate than the rest of Africa, but current statistics show us that about 2% of people who can benefit from hearing aids in Africa actually get them. So that's very unfortunate, because these technologies truly are life-changing these days. And in South Africa, even though our penetration rate with hearing aids is better, probably closer to around 10%, it's still much too low. We certainly want more people to be able to access those technologies. Part of it is because of the high cost of these devices, so they're expensive. So private healthcare insurance makes that very difficult for the majority of the population. But even in the public healthcare sector, even if they're offered, there are tremendous waiting lists, and if you're lucky enough to get a device, you typically only would get one for 1 year.
Oh, shoo. We've got just a voice note here quickly that we want to play for you, Prophet. Let's see what the listener is asking after.
Hi, Bridget. It's anonymous here. Bridget, just ask the professor there. That means the younger generation, because they spend all the time in the nightclubs, like you're saying, you're talking about your sister. So most of the younger generation, I'm sure the majority of the younger generation, the way they're making themselves exciting or happy, they go to the nightclub and they enjoy music, loud music. All they do is noise. Are you saying, Prof, that the younger generation will have this hearing problem as they grow up, before 50 or before maybe younger than 50, or you say 25? Is that the case now that we will see or they will experience, so that we start talking to our kids? Prof?
Hi Bridget, Belinda here. Please ask the professor his views on chlorine in a swimming pool. Our son, when he was about 5, had repeated ear infections and then developed a cholesteatoma, which destroyed his bones of hearing. So he's been left partially deaf as a result, had several reconstructive operations, and the foreign ear specialist who was dealing with him at the time said that it was the chlorine in our swimming pool that was causing these repeated infections and resulted in this cholesteatoma. I'd be interested in his views on this. Many thanks.
All right, Prof, we'll jump it over to you. You can respond in whichever order.
Very well. Let's maybe start with the question from the gentleman about the music of the youngsters, and he mentioned their music as the noise, so it differs. But that's certainly an important risk factor to be aware of. Unfortunately, youngsters, are not very concerned about their hearing, and that's why awareness campaigns and raising, the risks amongst this population is important. It's actually why the World Health Organization a few years ago launched a whole worldwide campaign called Safe Listening. And this safe listening is not so much for occupational noise, but recreational noise. The noise in, like he mentioned, nightclubs, but also use of personal listening devices. And the WHO has been partnering closely with manufacturers like Apple, Samsung, to incorporate measures in the applications and in their headphones to actually limit the output of these devices. And that's an ongoing process. But the estimates by the WHO is that 1 billion youngsters between the ages of 12 and 35 years of age are at risk of developing hearing loss due to unsafe listening practices.
Wow.
So yes, certainly, let's raise awareness. We want them to enjoy their music, but responsibly, and there's good advice and tips around that. And maybe to move on to the next question about the second listener who's got ear infection, repeated ear infections that eventually resulted in a condition that permanently damaged the transmission of sound, the system in the middle ear into the hearing organ. And that can happen. It's not too uncommon. And swimming in a pool when you already have ear infection, or when there's a perforation of your eardrum, is always a risk of recurrent ear infection. So one of the pieces of advice we always give to parents when their children have ear infection is to either block up the ears when their child is swimming, or to avoid swimming entirely. The exact cause of the recurrent ear infection may be due to the chlorine, but it may also be due to the bacteria and other, infectious constituents that are included in the pool. Many people swim in the pool. There's all kinds of things that are present in the water, and that oftentimes just exacerbates the infection in the child's ear.
Yeah, sure. Very interesting. In fact, I wasn't even, when Belinda started talking about that, I thought, geez, to your latest sentiment there, Prof, I thought, the things that are actually floating around in the pool, and we just obviously splash some chlorine and we figure it's going to work itself out. But thank you for that, those responses and the words of advice there and information for our listeners. Let's also talk a little bit about the awareness campaigns in our last few moments with you. I know you're doing a lot of work as well in low-income communities, but let's talk about how do we raise more awareness around hearing loss, and maybe even the causes of hearing loss and the impact of it and what we should be doing.
Yeah. Bridget, I think what we're doing now, on your radio show is one of the important ways in which we want to raise awareness. Just get it out there that hearing loss is really an invisible epidemic. We don't see it, but it's extremely prevalent, and there are important ways in which we can prevent it and look after our hearing health. So we certainly want to make use of these kinds of platforms. We also want to make use of, local community leaders, but also celebrities, like you had Mia Leroux on your show, or she was on SAFM yesterday. I think that's a wonderful way of actually raising awareness about both the presence of hearing loss and the prevalence, but also about how we can overcome hearing loss with the technologies that we have at our disposal today, and that we want to encourage people to look behind, to look through the potential stigma to what the benefits can be of the interventions. And then maybe a really practical way to raise awareness is that we always want to encourage people to know what their hearing status is. And we've partnered with the World Health Organization to develop a freely available application called the Hear Who app. It's a downloadable app from iOS and Android stores, and you can download it. You do a 3-minute hearing test with your own headphones on your own phone, and it will give you an accurate assessment of what your hearing status currently is. And you can then track it over time. So we typically recommend people do that 3-minute test every year. And this is one of the major tools that we, with the WHO, have been using globally to really raise awareness and ensure that people know their status, and that as soon as something's wrong, they can immediately act and follow up with intervention, because the sooner you act, the better the outcomes will be.
Yeah. Just as by way of a quick crash course, is it Hear Who as in HEARWHO?
Perfect. One word. Yes.
One word.
Exactly.
Okay. So that's available wherever you get your applications on your phone and your devices. And then just a quick orientation as we wrap it up. So how does it work? I downloaded, because we did think that we were going to do a hearing test with me here today, but then we just couldn't get around some of the clearance that we needed quickly. But how does it work with the app? You download it, and then what happens?
Yes, so you download the test, very simple, and then it runs you through some instructions, and then what you're going to hear is digits. So digits being presented between 0 and 9. So you'll hear 3 to 9. But there'll be background noise, and then whatever you hear, you punch into the keypad, and then you'll hear another set of 3 digits. And depending on whether you get them right or wrong, the ratio of the noise and the speech will change, so it will become more difficult for you. And this happens and runs for about 2 to 3 minutes, and then after that test is completed, you will get an outcome in terms of what your hearing status is.
Oh, simple enough. All right. Well, I'm going to go trial run it at home. But since I'm on the other side of 40, these things are not working out well for me anymore. I used to say I'm 20/20 vision, and as recent as the beginning of the year, I was like, what happened? But I'll definitely... You know the feeling. Prof, thank you for the time with you this afternoon, and of course for all the information that you've given us. I think you've really given us a lovely one on sort of 101 on hearing loss, and we're all going to go and download this application. Hear Who is the app, and you can find it wherever you download your apps on your phone or your devices. That was Professor David Swanepoel, and he's with the University of Pretoria. We're going to be giving away that money in just a moment. I hope you've SMS'd us on 41391. That is our SMS, not WhatsApp, SMS line, 41391. We're going to be giving away 8,800 Rand today in celebration of our 88th birthday. And all you have to do is take your phone with you and then answer the phone. That's it.
Hi, my name is Kamogelo, and I'm a lifesaver. Through a chance encounter with the DKMS Africa team at a nearby mall, I decided to register to become a stem cell donor and potentially give someone else a second chance at life. Every life is precious, and after I was made aware that I could give someone else a second chance at life, all it took to register was 3 swabs, a quick and easy process. You too could be a potential lifesaver in the making. Register to become a stem cell donor at dkmsafrica.org.
The Serengeti, located on the northern part of Tanzania, bordering Kenya on the north and Ngorongoro in the south. Home to the African Big Five and millions of zebras, birds and other predators. Serengeti 2 returns to the unspoiled corner of the Serengeti for more animal drama. There's humor, heartbreak, and nail-biting tension as new characters move in and familiar faces continue their stories. Channel your inner adventurer with Serengeti 2, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
So let's give away some money, and Lumka is on the line. How are you, Lumka?
Good, thanks, yourself.
I'm fabulous. Thank you so much. You know what? I wanted to surprise call you, but lucky for you, technology did not permit this afternoon. But thankfully, you answered your phone when the team did call you.
Okay.
Yeah, okay. Why are you sounding nervous?
Nobody. No one.
I live it for you. Lumka, we're celebrating our 80th birthday this year. SAFM turns 88, the oldest radio station in the land. And we thought we'd share the birthday cheer with some of our listeners. So, congratulations to you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You are walking away with the 8,800 rands today. Lumka, are you okay?
I'm speechless. I'm okay. Oh, I'm just speechless.
Well,
thank you.
Listen,
so much. I don't know what to say.
It's a pleasure. It is a pleasure. I'm glad you're speechless, actually, because then it means that you did not expect that you were going to win. So congratulations to you. That 8,800 is coming your way. What are we using it on? Are we going away, Senzan?
I don't know. I just don't know how to feel right now.
Okay.
I'm overwhelmed.
Okay. No, I will let you think on it. But whatever you do, whether you're being responsible and paying off some stuff or adding some things to the home, or you're deciding to spoil yourself, we're glad that we could have at least helped in one small nyana way. And thank you for playing and sending through your details, yeah?
Thank you. I should be saying thank you to you. Thank you very much.
It's only a pleasure. That was Alumka. She walks away with 8,800 rand today. I'm not going to say Alumka's surname because then you ran out of airtime and you need this, you need that. So, let her just enjoy her 8,800 rand courtesy of SAFM. And we continue this. We've got 10 lucky listeners that are going to be walking away with 8,800 rand during this month as we celebrate our 88th birthday. Right now, though, let's take a quick break and then we come back and we get into our last conversation today. Diabetes is an escalating public health crisis in South Africa, and we're going to catch up with the University of Pretoria's Diabetes Research Center around this.
Big ups to all the women of Africa Zonga. Incredible characters in various fields. When you set your mind onto something, your winning mentality is difficult to defeat, on and off the field. Your excellence in the world of sport speaks volumes. You are the great inspiration to the nation. Happy Women's Month, courtesy of SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Winners, finalists, fan favorites, and viral sensations from previous seasons of America's Got Talent return to the stage to compete for the All-Star title. Join Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Simon Cowell as they decide who is the best of the best. The creme de la creme, the top dog, is in Tamatota. It's a festival of talent on America's Got Talent All-Stars. Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. on S3. Channel your best entertainment with America's Got Talent All-Stars. Only on S3. Open up.
SAFM is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAFM and SMS the keyword SAFM88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply.
Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. Happy.
Bridget Masinga on SAFM.
Wrapping it up in our final 10 minutes with Dr. Ngasa Poti, who's the chairperson of the South African Diabetes Alliance and co-founder of the University of Pretoria's Diabetes Research Center. And though diabetes-related mortality is on the rise in South Africa, and the management of the condition remains suboptimal, even within the private sector, which is quite surprising. And yet, despite the high burden of the healthcare resources, numerous cases still go undiagnosed. And we're going to find out more from the good doctor. How are you doing this afternoon, doctor?
Hi, Bridget. Good afternoon, and to your listeners.
Thank you so much for the time. Let's talk about what I've just read here, that diabetes-related mortality is on the rise in South Africa, and the management of the condition remaining still suboptimal. Why is this so still in 2024? What does this speak to?
Yeah, unfortunately, as you rightly said, diabetes is the number one cause of death in the country. Well ahead of HIV, well ahead of TB and any other conditions that you or your speaker might know of. Meaning that in South Africa, one is more likely to die from diabetes than to die of any other condition. It happens that there's a couple of risk factors that lead to having a high prevalence of diabetes in South Africa. The estimate is that almost 4.3 million South Africans are living with diabetes, which is, as you can imagine, quite a considerable number. And diabetes is a complex condition. It requires more than just a tablet or even insulin for those who are on insulin. It requires a health system that is geared and prepared to manage the patient. It requires healthcare workers who are skilled and obviously up to date with the guidelines and ready to do the right thing when necessary in order to have the best outcome for the patient. And it requires as well a person living with diabetes who is empowered and able to manage the condition. As you know, for diabetes, it's about lifestyle modification in terms of healthy eating, exercising, when to take the medication, how to take the medication. There's a lot of information that the people living with diabetes needs to deal with. Unfortunately, in the system in South Africa, all those conditions are not met. As a result, we are experiencing poor outcomes with a lot of people dying from diabetes.
And when you talk about these conditions that are lacking, Dr. Ngasa, part and parcel, what does that speak to in as far as the failure in the ecosystem of managing this? Because when you talk around a healthcare system that is geared and prepared, where are those shortcomings there within the healthcare system, for instance?
Unfortunately, historically, our health system was focusing on the HIV crisis, the HIV pandemic that the whole of the whole world has experienced. So because of the funding that South Africa received from the partners globally, the accent has always been made in terms of HIV and related conditions, for example, tuberculosis and others. So it has not been our intention, when I say our intention as government, to really manage diabetes properly. The good news is that for the past few years, the Department of Health has published a national strategic plan to respond to diabetes and hypertension, and now there are targets for diabetes. So the goal is really to reverse the situation and to redirect resources so that those gaps can be addressed. For example, diabetes is a chronic disease whereby a patient carries a history, and when they interact with the health system, it's important that all that history is acknowledged and the healthcare workers is aware of it. In our system, we are mostly depending on a paper-based system, where in most facilities or in a lot of facilities is not uncommon, for example, for the file of the patient to disappear. Therefore, you sit in front of a healthcare worker, even if they are well trained, they don't have enough information to handle this patient. And then there is other issues, for example, the heavy burden that is on the healthcare worker is not giving them the opportunity to train people or to educate people living with diabetes. That's why one of the recommendations of the 2023 Diabetes Summit is, for example, for the Department of Health to consider integrating diabetes nurses educator, who will be those nurses who dedicate their life basically to educate patients, to coach them on how to adopt lifestyle changes, and to carry them or be with them in that journey of living a healthy life with diabetes.
Because you did mention as sort of one of the factors, the fact that we need more empowered patients, and that also speaks to just also one at first step, one getting diagnosed, and you write that we still very much underdiagnosed. Many patients remain underdiagnosed in South Africa.
Yes, and that is a crucial issue, Bridget. The statistics that says 4.3 million South Africans are living with diabetes also say that half of them are unaware of their condition. So 1 out of 2 people living with diabetes in South Africa doesn't know that they have diabetes, and that is a big problem. It's because obviously diabetes is described as a silent disease. One may have some symptoms, like, for example, urinating frequently or be hungry more than one should be, but not identify that these are actually symptoms that should require somebody to go to the healthcare facility. So there is a need for more awareness, more education among the communities, for not only people to identify what are the symptoms of diabetes, but also to be able to take the next steps and look for help and be eventually screened and diagnosed.
In our final moments, how do we make sure that we don't leave anyone behind? Because as you've emphasized, diabetes can be prevented, it can be treated, and it can be managed.
That is a crucial question, Bridget. My take is that responding to diabetes requires a societal approach, whereby it's not only the Department of Health, but it's actually all of us, including the Minister of Finance, including the Minister of Police. Imagine, let's say somebody is listening at home to this interview and is willing to make some changes. They decide that they will start exercising and running around because they don't have money to go to to take a gym subscription. They want to run in the neighborhood. Our neighborhood safe enough for people to decide to have to take a hike either at 6 p.m. or at 5 p.m. We know that most of the people have to work and sometimes have to reach home late because of the transportation that they are using. And at home, it's not safe to go out for a walk or for a jog. So Department of Police should be involved. And in terms of access to healthy options, are we making enough healthy options when it comes to food accessible to our communities? So it's not only to raise awareness, to inform and educate, all the way, I will say, even from primary school and to all the way to high school and universities, but it's also as a company, our companies, our enterprises, organizations doing the most that they can for the employees in terms of preventing those so described lifestyle conditions. So indeed, it's a societal approach, and as the Diabetes Alliance, every 2 years we have the Diabetes Summit where we focus really on diabetes, trying to bring all the whole players around the table and find those solutions that can eventually not only assist us in preventing diabetes, but also managing properly those who are living with the condition.
Dr. Ngasa, we fast run out of time today, but we appreciate you for carving out a few moments to be in conversation with us. That was Dr. Ngasa Poiki, who is the chairperson of the South African Diabetes Alliance and co-founder of the University of Pretoria's Diabetes Research Center. That is how we wrap it up from our end. Ashraf Gada and his team are already deadlocking us straight in the eye, and they're coming through between 3 and 6 o'clock. From my team and myself, we get to do it again tomorrow, inshallah, God willing.
Top stories. Makgashule's former PA's legal team aggrieved and Gwamanda speaks on resignation. With the news, I'm Dinomo Daung. Good afternoon. The legal team of Moradi Chuluta